is defined as the possibility of something bad or unpleasant happening. And for me, the key word in that definition is not risk or bad or unpleasant, it's actually possibility. And I think that's what we need to focus on. If there's something for me that best reflects when we consciously start engaging in the idea of risk, the image of a toddler, grasping the side of a piece of furniture on wobbly legs, peering across the room at a loved one, a parent, a brother or sister, who's probably actually coaxing them to let go, coaxing them to take the chance of falling. And when we finally let go, we've consciously engaged in risk. We've weighed the outcomes and decided, you know what, this time it's worth it. What I think is a problem is that as social animals, we have somehow decided that it's appropriate to judge the risks that others take. Throughout our day, we may see somebody doing something that for us feels distasteful or unpalatable. And we judge those behaviors as being bad or good based on our own comfort level. I think engaging in that kind of judgment is entirely unreasonable. I would be lying if I said that it escapes me. It's something that I find myself doing as well, of course. But I also then find myself really, really giving myself a little bit of a slap on the wrist. Where we consider and manage a risk that is autonomous, that is absolutely about ourselves and how we are self-determined, that we're allowed to manage it to whatever degree we find tolerable. We do need to judge others' behaviors when those behaviors may have impacts for us, real impacts, not uncomfortable impacts, may impact our safety, our well-being. It changes when we either engage in it without thought, so regardless of outcomes, not considering the outcomes, and ultimately when it has impacts for other people and they haven't engaged in that idea themselves. I'm going to talk about it in the context of service provision because that's who I am. I see myself as a service provider. But I think as service providers, as researchers, as clinicians, often in the context for me in conferences, et cetera, when we're educating one another, we'll use the phrase risk-taking behaviors. And what I think is problematic there is that it really others risk. It embeds risk in a particular group of behaviors. It doesn't acknowledge that the person using the phrase often also has engages in all kinds of risk-taking behavior. It is the beginning in that setting of engaging in stigmatizing the idea of risk. As soon as we talk about risk-taking behaviors as an isolated group of behaviors around sexual behavior or drug-using behavior, which arguably have both risks and benefits for the people making those decisions, we stigmatize the behaviors. We other them. We perhaps pass judgment on them. And I think that absolutely as service providers, as clinicians, as researchers, as the people engaging with people who are affected and infected by and with HIV and hepatitis C, we have an obligation to mitigate stigma at every turn and probably, in fact, to never engage in it at all, if we can. I would like to see a change in language around risk generally, and maybe this is just the starting place, that will bring us closer to ending HIV and hepatitis C related stigma. So as somebody living with HIV and who absolutely experienced the wash of shame associated with my HIV diagnosis, even though I knew it was a completely unreasonable wash of shame, I kind of watched it happening. It's really important to me that we move away from stigmatizing language. So I would propose, instead of talking about risk-taking behaviors, we use a more empathetic term, like risk tolerance, or empathetic phrase, like risk tolerance. I think the idea of risk tolerance suggests that the speaker knows that risk is a continuum and a spectrum, and acknowledges that they themselves engage in risk. Risk is an essential piece of all of the really big decisions we'll make in our lives. The decisions that define who we are, define how we want to be perceived and how we will be perceived, define how we will love and who we will love, and define how we're loved. I think that if we start talking about risk and risk tolerance, maybe we move away from stigmatizing risk.